What's up, guys? This is Quincy from Coin Club Crypto. Welcome to my channel, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and talk about it with your friends if you like the topics we have to talk about. Now, today we're going to be going over a little intro into open source technology. Now, what is open source technology? Well, let's start off with just general technology and how people go around with the ownership of that. Now, typically, people would patent some form of technology they have created, giving them ownership, essentially having people having to go through a set of licenses and fees in order to access it, and essentially having to either partner or pay a set of fees in order to use the innovation of the owner that created the technology. Now, where open source comes into play is that same owner, instead of patenting the technology, essentially gives the technology out to the internet for free. So it's no different than somebody just taking an upload of whatever they created and just giving it out there. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, well, why would someone just give out innovative technology just out to the world just for the sake of doing so? And part of it is a general culture that there is in technology. And sort of the broader sense of what you end up seeing in this culture is you can easily build upon the shoulder of giants, and you can do so in increments. And in doing so, it gives not only you a further advantage in being able to expand on the technology, it gives everybody with access to that technology an advantage also. So what ends up happening is we have quite a bit of a culture that is fostered by open source technology, in which people are essentially able to use uh, almost the standing of the technology they created as some form of value and illustrate that to people while at the same time improving upon previous technologies. Now, one of the biggest sort of spaces you see open source technology and sort of the competition between patented technology and open source technology is the relationship between Linux and Microsoft. Now, a lot of people have been a little familiar with Linux and they may have heard the name before, but most people are quite familiar with Microsoft's. Now, Microsoft is just a licensed technology that Bill Gates has come up with for people to interact with their operating system. Now, Linux is the same way, but Linux is just more of an open source manner of doing so, which means the people who created Linux and build upon Linux don't license out the technology to be bought and sold. It's just a free software out there for people to adopt. Now, well, where does it come into play when it comes to technologies of the future and even blockchain technologies? Well, what you end up seeing is majority of blockchain technologies are actually created off of these open source platforms. And the reason for this is it gives global technological access to everybody and gives everybody the capabilities of being able to build enterprise solutions on top of them. So what you end up seeing is with open source technologies, the adoption curve ends up being significantly faster and significantly steeper because anybody can hop on and start working with the technology, where something like a patented technology has to essentially go through a series of partnerships and has to be pushed forward by some form of entity. And it essentially has to go through the general growth of whatever the occupants of the entity are able to endure. So the company can only grow so big over so time. That's as big the company is able to grow. Whereas open source technology can essentially go viral like any other piece of content on the internet. It could grow like wildfire, and there's no necessarily bounds to what its growth can be, mostly because anybody can adopt the technology and start working on top of it and building on top of it. Now, in open source technologies, there are a few sort of what we call licenses, and we have the MIT license, the Apache license, and the GNU general license. And all these are open source licenses that you can put on your technologies to illustrate to other people that they could use these technologies. And all it really is just publishing to the internet, hey, look at this, I created this, you can too, and here it is out here for you. And it's just a way to identify what technologies are open sourced and what technologies are automatically potentially identified by either an owner or may not necessarily have that clarity on what the open source status of what that technology may be. But as a whole, open source technology allows for anybody to build on top of it, allowing them to utilize the technology of the innovators before them without having to ask for permission, while a patented technology would essentially have to go through all the processes of asking for permission to use the technology from the person who created it in the first place. Now, if you made it this far, you made it to the end of the video. I hope you've been able to learn a lot. Maybe if you have any questions, you can discuss them down below in the comments, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace, guys.